Hello friends, and welcome back to another book review by me, myself, Kate. We are still in the books that I read for October's challenge. There's a lot of them. We are in a horror, I want to say puddle. I don't know why. Puddle is such a weird word for this moment, but I want to say puddle. So we are in a horror puddle. As we get through more of these reviews, maybe I'll sprinkle in some of my newer books so I can give you guys a break, but we all know we're here for the dark stories. It is not called Dark Side of the Word for nothing. And so to continue with that, today I'm going to be reviewing Let Him In by William Friend, and that is a shiny cover. Come on. The one thing about getting my books from the library that's a little annoying is the shiny cover they put on them, because I'm trying to show you guys so you can see, and I want to show you a little closer so you can get the full effect of, like, from here it looks like a skull, but like when you see it closer it's a little trick. So if you're new to my channel, I just want to let you know this review is done in two parts. The first part will be spoiler free, where I discuss the book in broad terms without spoiling the book, and then I will warn you and do a spoiler version at the end so I can go more into details for all of us that have read the book or just don't care about being spoiled. To give you a rating of the horror level of this book, I would rate it as a 3. I think some people would probably be scared reading this book. I think there was one little like, ooh, moment, but I wasn't scared at all. And I'm probably still a bad judge because I'm finding that I'm not scared with any horror books anymore. And yes, at the book sale, I picked up 2 Stephen King books. Not as scary ones, but I did pick up 2 Stephen King books because I need to be scared. I don't know why that happened. We're going with it. Today is weird. We're going with it. All right. The review I quickly wrote for this book. We'll see how good it is. I was very tempted to read the synopsis that is provided on the book because it's really, really well done. But after reading it, I realized I had to go in a very different direction to not copy what was already written. So bear with me. I don't think this is my best version. So go read the book synopsis that they wrote because it is really good. Okay. Alfie is at his wit's end. After months of waking up to his twin daughters claiming there's a man in the room, they suddenly claim that this man is their new best friend, a friend that takes them on adventures. They fly to the moon on his back, they explore the plumbing with him when he's a fish, they snuggle in bed with him when he's a bear. But try as he might, Alfie can't play along with the invisible friend. He tries. He tries his very best, because he knows that this is a coping mechanism to recover from their mother's sudden death in the basement. When Alfie's patience runs short, he calls his sister-in-law, a therapist, for help. She talks to the girls and claims it's a natural outlet for their grief, until they say something that's eerily familiar. Something that makes her think she has more of a hand in it, in what is happening. When the history of the house and her family's religious affiliation comes back into play, she begins to worry that the man her nieces are setting a place at the table for might not just be in there. Now I'm going to do something a little bit different with this review, and I'm going to start with a positive comment because I've noticed that I've been starting with the negative first, so I'm going to start with a positive comment, which is that I really enjoyed the characters in the book. I can't give you exact reason of why why I kept reading this book. But there was something about it. There was just, maybe because it was set in London and this really cool old townhouse across from a park, and it had very London vibes, and it was just the tone of the narrative, the characters. There was something that harkened back to say a Jane Austen, not even in writing style, but just in that enjoyment where you can just sit. There's just a joy in reading the words, and you sit in it, and it's that broken spot in the couch where your ass just sits perfectly, and so you keep sitting there, even though maybe isn't the most perfect, comfortable thing, but you keep sitting there because it's just familiar and safe. And I'm saying this about a horror book. I just said a horror book is safe. I told you. I'm starting to have an issue. Well, it's just this thing, and I actually enjoyed reading it until the last 40 pages. Okay, I couldn't talk about this book that well for too long, okay? But if you watch my review for the site, here's book number 2, where we have so much buildup and just a great idea. I mean, I have not seen the idea of little girls coming to their parents' bedroom and being like, "Daddy, there's a man in my room." And that man then months later turns into their new imaginary best friend. That is so intriguing. And when I read the synopsis for this book, I was like, I don't know if I can read this, okay? I'm scared shitless. And my friend told me not to read it. But I did anyway because there was just something about it. And I'm glad I did because it wasn't scary for me, okay? It was not scary. But you have this great idea. You have these girls. You're wondering about if it's really grieving for their mother. And then you get to the last 40 pages and you're just like, what the fuck, man? What the fuck? Why is it that there's this trend of having such amazing horror stories and ideas, and either we go to the fantastical extreme, like episode 13, Sunshine, all that, where it's just everything goes to shit, and we're trying to go there with the idea, but we can't actually go there. I mean, well, we have an idea for the end, but everything just dissolves into chaotic mess. Or we have an ending that stays more into the realness of the world, but there's no explanation for why anything is fucking happening. Anything. And the author just like throws a bunch of things at you and is like, there you go. Somewhere in that mess and chaotic mess, you're gonna find the answer. Is it just that the author doesn't have an answer? I'm telling you, if you came up with the idea, you have to have an answer as to why the idea happened, and then tell me, please, because I've now read 2 stories with no payoff. None. In a row. I'm annoyed. And if my next book is the same way, I'm giving up. Though I said that this book was very enjoyable for me to read, I don't think that it would be enjoyable for a lot of people. I know that my friend didn't like it. And I think it's because it's like a low budget movie. There's not a huge cast. It's pretty much shot in one location. We have the park, which is like this character that's always talked about but never on screen. And it's this beautiful park where stuff happens and you kind of want to like go play in the park, but you can't because it's just there. And there's really no plot to it. We just have these essentially 3 to 4 people in the house interacting, having a few things happen, and just weird shit happens here and there. That's it. It's really a character-driven story without any character. Because I don't think there's a character arc. I really don't. I mean, the girls are young. There's nothing character arcing for them. They're too young to have a character arc. And, well, after what happens to the dad at the end, it's just like, what happened? And I wouldn't say that... Here we go. It always has to happen. But this time I have the book, and I can check. What? Julia. And then Julia, what happens with Julia, it's just, she doesn't have a character arc either. Plain and simple. I always tend to complain about there being 2 point of views, especially in the fact when you have 2 characters simultaneously switching in the middle of a scene. You know, that's a huge no-no for me. But again, it worked with this book for some reason, and I was okay with it for some reason. And I sat comfortably with it. I don't know if it was needed, but I was okay with it. Unlike The Sight, which was a body without a skeleton, this had a skeleton. It had a lot of what it needed to stand, but it had no facial features. Very different problem, because where the other one collapsed under the questions in the story, this one just didn't reveal itself very well. I think that we did really have all the pieces, and Friend just didn't reveal to us where the pieces fit together. And by the end of the story, when I think that the way that it ended the way he wanted to end, there was just no time to have the explanation of why things happened. And if you want to go with the idea, nope, not going to say that, that's a spoiler. Not going to say that. I can see where Friend really did try. Like, we have the backstory of the house coming, we have the backstory of Julia's family, we have the girls playing out, the twin connection, it's all there. Friend just doesn't reveal anything. And that's really annoying, especially when, like I said, it came to the last 40 pages when the ending and the climax really happens, because I just want to know who is the imaginary friend. And I see where Friend's trying to play that whole weird thing of like, ooh, what's real, what's not. And I think that this might be one of the better versions of being able to play with what's real and what's not, especially with the puzzle pieces that are laying out and certain things that are said. But I guess my problem with this is what happens when I do these reviews. I have epiphanies in my head as I'm explaining it to all of you. And this is why I have to do these reviews, because I've got no one other fucking person to talk about the books. So I talk to the camera to talk it out to myself. And just pretend that there's someone listening on the other side. Okay, But now the more I think about this ending, the more I'm actually okay with it, and I don't hate this book as much. I think the problem that I'm really having with the ending in the book is that it just doesn't feel like there's a whole arc to the story. It's just we have the middle, the what's happening, and then just no real explanation for the turn of events and for what happened. And so like we don't have an arc, we just have like an end point. It's just boom, this is where it ends. And so I think that's where I'm getting annoyed, is because again it feels unsatisfying, but in a way it actually kind of is its unsatisfying ending. And the more I think about it, the more I'm just like, oh, interesting. I'm noticing that you know how so many people are so literal about things, and so they go for the literal explanation. I could see someone reading this book and going to the literal reasoning behind why it ended the way it ended. But for me, I'll lean towards the fantastical. I had something recently sadly happen in my life, and I was immediately to the fantastical reason as to why it happened. And so I think that I lean so heavily on the fantastical side of the story that that's the way I went. But the more I think about it, the more I'm just like, okay, maybe the literal is the example I need to lean on here. Alright friends, it is time for the spoiler portion, so make sure to click away, ruin my metrics, it's okay, and come back later once you've read the book. Okay, I have so many thoughts. Especially with, like I said, the ending. And as I left off with the spoiler-free portion about wanting to go to the more literal sense of the story, is that I think Friend really wants to lean on the fact that the imaginary friend is not real, and he really wants you to believe that. He wants you to believe that Alfie had this emotional soul moment in the basement, and all of his grief came out, and he let it go, and he sank into it, and then he just kind of accepted who he was and what was going on and what was in his face. And so then he went, and now we have this whole turning point of the grief and the process, and he has this future, and so now he's like existing in it, but the girls don't like the new version he's become, and so they keep saying that he's not daddy. I think where I always struggled with that was the fact that the imaginary friend said to call him daddy and the other one Alfie, and so when the time came and they saw him as Black Mamba, they were like, well, that's daddy. And so then the family was like, well, yeah, it's daddy. And they're like, no, it's they played into the game. And so that's why I was leaning so much on the fantastical side, but now part of me is like, maybe it actually is just all fake. And maybe everything did just play out into this perfect atmosphere, and Alfie didn't kill the grandmother, and it all just happened the way it did, and we're just human beings that keep wanting to lean on a metaphysical reason for why things happen, but it really just happened, and the order of events just exists that they were grieving, and it was all in their head. It was a full or whatever it is. I should know this, Joker just came out. But what if it is just, the monster isn't real? But it seems that the family all kept searching for the fantastical element as well. It went through this entire lineage from the grandparents in a way to, I think the sisters were letting go, but then her sister, her twin, was having these nightmares. Again, it really pointed to the whole family having some sort of psychosis in their head, played on by the fact that the grandfather and grandmother were always searching for this otherworldly presence in their world. And you can kind of like, maybe that's the whole point, is you can see it play out through the generations. And so now this is what is become to the kids at the end. And if you believe in emotions being hereditary and trapped emotions being passed on, in a way this could be what was passed on to them from, say, their mom, who went through this as a child with her parents, and all of that playing out. So it's very interesting. Like, I really feel that in the story we need to peel back the layers to be able to understand more of what's happening. If you take it from that this is a very literal book, like, it is psychosis, there is no Black Mamba, and this is just how things are happening. And Alfie just had a spiraling moment in the basement, and his last imaginary moment with, I think it was Pippa, I believe. Yes. And then he just accepted that there could be a future somewhere else. But if it's not, where the fuck did the real dad go? Where the fuck? And did he go to the, what's it called? The sunken place or whatever from Get Out? Is that where he went? Because I was too Get Out coded for it to be anything else. Though I'm sure Jonathan Beale isn't the first one to come up with that idea, but now it's just It's two in pop culture. It's the Get Out sunken place. That's it. I do have one question. Why did no one go in the attic? Like, I get the cellar. That's so obvious. But why the hell did no one go into the attic? Okay? Why? Why? What monster's in the attic? Thanks, friends. I hope that you enjoyed this review. If you did, please make sure to give the video a thumbs up and to also subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of my book reviews. And if you're looking for more content, make sure to check out my other book reviews as well as the podcast I co-host with my friend where we talk about the creative journey, we do other content recaps, and we host a horror book club every month. But I hope you have a happy, magical reading time.